Have you ever been at a point in your life where all hope seemed lost? A time when the odds were stacked so high against you, you couldn't possibly see a way out? Well, let me take you back to a story from the Bible, a story about a widow who experienced one of the most extraordinary miracles ever recorded. You won't want to miss this. Our story unfolds during a time of great famine in the land of Israel, a drought so severe that crops withered and the rivers dried up. Now imagine yourself in Zarephath, a village located outside of Israel, in Phoenicia. Here, amidst the barren land and desperate faces, lived a widow and her young son. Her life had been anything but easy. She was a woman of deep resolve, yet the famine had utterly depleted her strength and her resources. Every morning, as the sun scorched the ground, she would trudge into the village with her empty basket, hoping for a miracle, but finding none. She would return home with her heart heavier than before. Her cupboards were bare. Her jar of flour was nearly gone, her jug of oil almost empty. The line between having hope and despair had grown impossibly thin, and yet she kept going, if not for herself, then for her son. One day, as she was gathering sticks to prepare what she believed would be her and her son's last meal, a man approached her. This was no ordinary man, though she didn't know it yet. This man was Elijah, one of God's prophets. His skin was weathered from years of wandering and speaking God's truth, and his eyes held an intensity that could pierce any soul. Elijah called out to the widow, saying, "Please bring me a little water in a jar so that I may drink." Now remember, water was extremely scarce because of the drought, yet the widow, being kind-hearted, turned to go fetch him some. But before she could reach for her jar, Elijah called after her, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." This stopped her in her tracks. She turned to him, her face etched with sorrow, and said, "As surely as the Lord your God lives, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Pause for a moment. Can you feel the depth of her despair? This was a mother, a woman with nothing left to give, preparing for what she believed was the end. Yet here was a man asking her for bread, for something she didn't believe she could spare. But Elijah, undeterred, looked her in the eyes and said, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me. Then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." What would you do in her shoes? The choice couldn't have been easy. To obey meant to part with what little she had left, to risk everything on the word of a stranger. Yet there was something about his words, an authority that stirred her spirit. So, with trembling hands and a heart full of fear and hope, she did as Elijah asked. She baked the bread, brought it to him, and then returns to prepare a meal for herself and her son. And something miraculous happened. When she reached for the jar of flour, there was still flour inside. The jug of oil, too, held more than she thought was left. Day after day, as she prepared meals for herself, her son, and the prophet, the jars were never empty. This wasn't a coincidence. It was divine provision. The same God who could calm storms and part seas showed up in the life of a widow and her son, sustaining them when it seemed like all was lost. But the story doesn't end there. Sometime later, the widow's son fell ill. His condition worsened until he stopped breathing. In her anguish, she cried out to Elijah, questioning why this had happened. "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" she sobbed. Elijah, moved with compassion, took the boy from her arms and carried him to his room upstairs. He laid the boy on his bed, cried out to God, and stretched himself over the child 3 times, praying, "Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him." And the Lord heard Elijah's cry. The boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah brought the boy back down to his mother and said, "Look, your son is alive." Can you imagine the joy and relief she must have felt? In that moment, she said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." So, what does this ancient story mean for us today? Why does it matter? It's a reminder that even in our darkest hours, when we feel like we have nothing left to give, God's provision is constant. It teaches us the importance of faith and obedience even when circumstances seem impossible. Sometimes it's in the act of giving, even when we feel we have nothing left, that miracles unfold. The widow's story is one of hope, faith, and a God who sees and provides. It's about realizing that even when we are at the end of our strength, we are never forgotten. So, if you're going through a tough time, if you feel like your jars are empty and you've got nothing left to give, remember this story. Have faith, hold on, and trust that help is on its way. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to spread this story of faith and hope. And remember, no matter what you're going through, God sees you. He hears you, and He'll provide for you in ways you could never imagine. Until next time, stay blessed. Stay